"Sir, can I sit with you? Nobody else will let me." The boy's voice shattered something in that diner. 11 years old. Leg brace rusted and cutting into flesh. Bruises hidden under a collar 2 sizes too big. He had 27 minutes before his stepfather finished the meeting across the street, the meeting about making his death look like an accident. Every table had rejected him. Every adult had looked away. Now he stood before the most dangerous-looking man in the room, a Hells Angels biker with scarred knuckles and cold eyes begging for permission to exist. What happened in the next 43 seconds would expose a nightmare that an entire town had chosen not to see. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. Let me see how far this story reaches. Sir, can I sit with you? Just until my leg stops shaking. Ethan Cole said it like a prayer. He wasn't sure. God still answered. His voice didn't crack because he was being dramatic. It cracked because he was 11 years old and running on nothing but fear and the last bit of hope he had left. The man at the corner table didn't look up right away. He was big. Shoulders like a door frame, gray beard trimmed short against weathered skin. Tattoos crawled up both arms like stories nobody had asked him to tell. His leather vest had patches that made other customers choose different seats. Hells Angels. The words alone made polite people forget their manners. His name was Gunner Reeves, though everyone who knew him called him Hawk. And right now, Hawk was doing what he did most Tuesday evenings, eating chili, drinking black coffee, and reading a paperback western like a man trying hard to be invisible. He looked up. The boy standing beside his table was small for 11. Too small. His right leg was wrapped in a metal brace that looked like it belonged on a kid 3 years younger. Rust spotted the hinges. The padding had worn through in places, and Hawk could see where the metal had rubbed the skin raw. The boy's jacket was 2 sizes too big sleeves hanging past his knuckles. His shoes had duct tape holding the soles together. And his eyes moved like a rabbit's, counting exits, measuring distances, cataloging every adult in the room. Hawk had seen eyes like that before, in war zones, in foster homes, in mirrors he'd rather forget. Nobody else will let me, the boy added quieter now. His knee buckled slightly, and he grabbed the edge of the table to steady himself. Please. Hawk didn't do that thing most adults do, that pause where they calculate the social cost of kindness, where they look around to see who's watching where they pretend they didn't hear. He reached down with his boot and pushed the empty chair out. Sit, he said, voice like gravel, delivery soft. You're okay right here. The boy's whole body seemed to collapse inward with relief, but when he tried to lower himself into the chair, his bad leg caught wrong. Pain shot through his face. His balance went sideways, and the crutch he'd been hiding against his body clattered to the floor. The sound was louder than it should have been. Heads turned. Conversations paused. A woman 3 booths away whispered something to her husband. A trucker at the counter looked over his shoulder, frowned, then looked away. Ethan's face went white. Not from pain, from something older. Something that told Hawk this kid had learned that drawing attention meant drawing punishment. Hawk moved fast for a man his size. He caught the crutch before it rolled, set it upright, and steadied the boy with one hand at his elbow. Not grabbing, not squeezing, just anchoring him like a wall that doesn't move. You're good, Hawk said low enough that only Ethan could hear. Take your time. Nobody's rushing you. Ethan lowered himself into the chair like it was made of glass. His hands were shaking. His jaw was clenched so tight Hawk could see the muscle jumping beneath the skin. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "Thank you." Hawk sat back down and studied the boy for a long moment. Then he lifted 2 fingers toward the counter. A waitress in her 60s name tag said Dolores had been watching from behind the register. She'd been working at Miller's Road Diner for 19 years, and she'd seen plenty of hard-looking men come through those doors. She'd also seen plenty of kids who didn't look right. This was the first time she'd seen both at the same table. She approached slowly, coffee pot in hand like a shield. "You need something?" Hawk didn't look at her. He was still watching the boy. "Bring him a meal, not a snack. A real meal. Grilled cheese fries and a chocolate shake. And make it fast." Dolores glanced at Ethan. The boy wouldn't meet her eyes. "Sure thing, honey." She turned and headed toward the kitchen, but she kept looking back over her shoulder. Ethan sat with his hands pressed flat against his thighs, fingers curled into the fabric of his jeans. He was breathing too fast, counting something in his head. His eyes kept drifting toward the window, toward the parking lot, toward the road that led to wherever he'd come from. Hawk recognized the math. The kid was calculating time. How long until something? How long until someone? "What's your name?" Hawk asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. His gaze flicked to Hawk's vest, to the patches, to the scars on Hawk's knuckles. Then, like he'd made a decision, he said, "Ethan. Ethan Cole." Hawk nodded once. "I'm Hawk." Ethan's lips parted like he almost wanted to ask if that was a joke. He didn't. He looked down at the table instead. Hawk leaned back in his chair, giving the boy space. His eyes dropped to the leg brace. "How long you been wearing that thing long?" Ethan said. "Long, like a few weeks. Or long like somebody stopped taking you where you needed to go." Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Hawk let the silence sit for a moment. Then he said softer, "That brace is too small. It's cutting into your leg. I can see it from here." Ethan's hand moved instinctively to cover the gap where the metal met his skin. "It's fine." "It's not fine." "How old were you when you got fitted for it?" 8. Hawk did the math. That was 3 years of growth on a brace built for a smaller kid. 3 years of pressure in the wrong places. 3 years of damage that didn't need to happen. "Where's the adult who's supposed to be handling this?" Hawk asked. Ethan's face went through something complicated. Fear first, then something that looked almost like relief. Then a wall came down, and his expression went blank. "He's across the street," Ethan said. "He's in a meeting." Dolores returned with the food. She set the plate down in front of Ethan, and the boy stared at it like he'd forgotten what a full meal looked like. "Go on," Hawk said. "Eat." Ethan didn't move. "What's wrong?" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not supposed to eat without permission." The words landed in Hawk's chest like a fist. He kept his face neutral, his voice even. "Kid," he said, "I'm giving you permission. Eat." Ethan looked at him for a long second. Then he picked up the grilled cheese with both hands and took a bite so big it looked like he was afraid someone might take it away. He chewed fast, swallowed hard, reached for the shake, and drank half of it in one pull. Hawk watched without saying anything. He'd seen hunger like this before, not the kind that comes from missing one meal, the kind that comes from never knowing if the next meal is coming at all. "Slow down," Hawk said gently. "It's not going anywhere." Ethan forced himself to take smaller bites. His eyes were wet, but he didn't cry. He just kept eating methodical now, like he was storing fuel for whatever came next. "When's the meeting end?" Hawk asked. Ethan checked the clock on the wall. His face tightened. 22 minutes. 22 minutes until what? Until he comes looking for me. Hawk leaned forward slightly. What happens when he finds you? Ethan didn't answer, but his hand moved to his collar, tugging it higher like he was trying to cover something. Hawk had seen enough. He reached out slowly, giving the boy time to pull away, and hooked one finger under the edge of Ethan's collar. Ethan flinched, but didn't move. The bruise was purple and yellow, shaped like fingers. 4 days old, maybe 5. The kind of bruise that comes from being grabbed hard and held harder. Hawk let go of the collar. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes went cold. "Who did that?" he asked. Ethan pulled his collar back up. "Nobody. That's not what nobody looks like." Ethan's breathing had gone shallow. His hands were trembling again. "He's not a bad person," Ethan said, and the words sounded rehearsed like he'd said them 100 times before. He's had rehearsed like he'd said them 100 times before. He just gets frustrated sometimes. I make him frustrated. If I was better, he wouldn't. "Stop," Hawk said. His voice wasn't harsh, but it was firm. "Don't finish that sentence. Whatever you're about to say, I've heard it before. And it was a lie then, too." Ethan looked at him, startled. "I grew up in the system," Hawk said. "Foster homes. Group homes. Places where kids learn to apologize for the bruises other people gave them. I know that script. And I'm telling you right now, it's not your fault. None of it. You hear me?" Ethan's lower lip trembled. "You don't know what he's like," he whispered. Hawk's voice dropped lower. "Then tell me." Ethan's story came out in pieces. Not a flood. More like water leaking through cracks in a dam. Hawk didn't push. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, and with every sentence the picture got darker. "My mom died," Ethan said. "A year and a half ago. Cancer. I'm sorry." Ethan shook his head. "Don't be. She's the only reason I lasted this long." "What do you mean?" "She left me a letter," Ethan said, "before she died. She knew she wasn't going to make it. She told me she wrote it down. She said, 'Ethan, when things get hard, find someone you can trust, not someone who looks safe, someone who actually sees you.'" Hawk felt something shift in his chest. "My stepdad, Dennis, he changed after she died." Ethan continued. "At first he was okay. Nice even. The neighbors all said he was such a good man for taking care of me. They said I was lucky." Ethan's voice cracked on the word. "Lucky." He wiped his nose with his sleeve. "Then the insurance money came through. My mom had a policy. $400,000. With me as the beneficiary. Dennis as the trustee, until I turn 18. Hawk's jaw tightened. He knew where this was going. "That's when he started changing," Ethan said. "First it was little things. He stopped taking me to doctor's appointments. Said I was fine. Said I was faking to get attention. Then he pulled me out of school. Said he was going to homeschool me. But there weren't any lessons. There was just staying home. Staying quiet. Staying out of his way." Dolores came back to refill Hawk's coffee. She hesitated, looking at Ethan's face, at the way the boy seemed to be shrinking into himself. "Everything okay over here?" Hawk glanced at her. "Could use some privacy." Dolores nodded slowly. She set the coffee pot down and moved to the far end of the counter, but her eyes kept drifting back. Hawk turned back to Ethan. "Where do you sleep?" Ethan's hands twisted in his lap. "The basement." A basement. It used to be a storage room. He cleaned it out after Mom died. Put a cot down there. A bucket. He put a lock on the door. Ethan's voice went flat, like he was describing someone else's life. The lock is on the outside. Hawk's hand curled into a fist under the table. He locks you in when he goes out, when he has company, when he's mad. Ethan shrugged, but it wasn't casual. It was the kind of shrug kids learn when they're trying to make the unbearable sound normal. It's not that bad. There's a light. The words hung in the air like smoke. Hawk took a slow breath, steadied himself. "Ethan," he said carefully, "has anyone ever reported this? A teacher, a neighbor, anyone? I don't go to school anymore," Ethan said. "The neighbors think Dennis is a saint. He plays the part really well. He brings cookies to the lady next door. He helps the old guy across the street with his gutters. Everyone thinks—" Ethan's voice broke. "Everyone thinks I'm the problem. That I'm difficult. That I lie." A flash of headlights swept across the diner window. Ethan's whole body went rigid. "What time is it?" he asked, voice pitched higher now. Hawk checked. 6:47. Ethan scrambled in his seat, trying to stand. "I have to go. I have to get back before—" Before what? Ethan's eyes were wild now. "He's going to be done soon. If he sees I'm gone, if he finds out where I went—" Hawk's hand came down on the table. Not a slam. Just a firm press. Enough to make Ethan stop. "Sit down," Hawk said. "You don't understand. I understand fine. You're scared of what happens when he finds you. But running back now doesn't fix anything. It just puts you back in that basement." Ethan was breathing hard tears starting to spill down his cheeks. "What am I supposed to do?" "You're supposed to let me help, Tuan." Hawk pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts and stopped on a name. He hesitated for just a second, then hit dial. 3 rings. "Hawk." The voice on the other end was gravelly surprised. "It's Tuesday. You never call on Tuesday." "I know. I need you at Miller's. Bring Mercy and Doc." A pause. "What kind of situation? The kind that needs witnesses? We're 20 minutes out. Make it 15. Hawk hung up. Ethan was staring at him, face pale. "Who was that, friends?" Hawk said. "People you can trust." "I don't even trust you," Ethan whispered. Hawk nodded slowly. "That's fair. You just met me. But here's the thing, kid, in about 15 minutes you're going to have to make a choice. You can go back to that basement or you can tell your story to people who actually give a damn. I can't make that choice for you, but I can make sure you have the option." Ethan's hand drifted to his pocket. His fingers curled around something small and hard. "What's that?" Hawk asked. Ethan pulled it out slowly. A USB drive. Small. Black. Ordinary looking. But the way he held it wasn't ordinary. He held it like a grenade. Like evidence. Like the only proof that his nightmare was real. "What's on it?" Hawk asked. Ethan's voice was barely audible. Him. Talking. To his girlfriend. About me. About the money. About... Ethan swallowed hard. About how accidents happen to kids all the time. The air in the diner seemed to thin. Hawk kept his voice very, very steady. "You recorded him?" Ethan nodded. "I didn't know what else to do. He talks on the phone when he thinks I'm asleep. He laughs about it. Like it's all a big joke. Like I'm not even real." "How many recordings?" 12, Ethan said. "Over 4 months." Hawk reached out slowly and put his hand over Ethan's, covering the USB drive. "You did good," he said. "You did real good. For the first time since he'd walked into the diner, Ethan looked like he might actually believe someone. The door opened. Ethan's head snapped toward it, and his face drained of color. A man walked in, mid-40s, clean-shaven, polo shirt tucked into pressed khakis. He had the kind of smile that looked good in photographs, and the kind of eyes that calculated every angle. Dennis Mercer looked like a man who coached Little League and volunteered at church. He looked like safety. Hawk knew better. Dennis scanned the diner. His gaze swept past the truckers, past Dolores, past the family in the booth by the window, and landed on Ethan. The transformation was instant. His smile widened. His shoulders dropped into a posture of relief. His voice carried across the whole restaurant, warm and worried and perfectly pitched. "Ethan. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." He started walking toward the table. Ethan's whole body locked up. His hand clenched around the USB drive so hard his knuckles went white. Dennis approached the corner booth, and his smile didn't falter when he saw Hawk. Didn't even flicker when he registered the patches on the vest. Thank God, Dennis said, hand over his heart. "Sir, thank you for looking after him. He wanders off sometimes. He has issues, emotional problems since his mother passed. We're working on it." His hand reached for Ethan's shoulder. "Come on, son. Time to go home." Hawk's boot hooked around the leg of the empty chair and dragged it out. "Sit down," he said. Dennis blinked. The smile stayed, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Excuse me," I said, "sit down." Hawk's voice was low conversational and absolutely immovable. "We need to talk about your stepson." Dennis laughed. A practiced, charming, aren't you ridiculous laugh. "I appreciate your concern, but this is a family matter. Ethan, let's go." His hand closed around Ethan's arm. Ethan made a small sound. A whimper he tried to swallow. Hawk didn't stand. He didn't raise his voice. He just reached out, wrapped his fingers around Dennis's wrist, and squeezed. Not hard enough to bruise. Just hard enough to stop. Dennis's smile finally cracked. "Let go of me. Let go of him first." Their eyes met. Hawk's were calm. Dennis's were starting to realize that charm wasn't going to work here. Dennis released Ethan's arm. Hawk released Dennis's wrist. "Sit," Hawk said again. Down. Dennis stayed standing, but his weight shifted backward. He glanced around the diner. Other customers were watching now. Dolores had her hand near the phone. "Look," Dennis said, adjusting his tone. "I don't know what Ethan's told you, but the kid has problems. He makes things up. He's been like this since his mother. His leg brace hasn't been adjusted in 3 years, Hawk said. Dennis's mouth snapped shut. He's got finger-shaped bruises on his neck. He flinches when someone reaches for him. And he just told me you keep him locked in a basement." The diner had gone dead silent. Dennis's face shifted through several expressions. Shock. Calculation. Then something harder. Something meaner. "He's lying," Dennis said. Voice clipped now. "He does this. Makes up stories for attention. Turns strangers against his own family." Hawk's head tilted slightly. "Does he make up audio recordings too?" Dennis went very still. Ethan, Hawk said, not taking his eyes off Dennis. "Show him." Ethan's hand trembled as he held up the USB drive. Dennis's face changed. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. "Where did you get that?" His voice came out different. Lower. Dangerous. "Give it to me. Right now." Ethan pulled his hand back. Dennis took a step forward. His hand shot out, and Hawk was on his feet. 6'2", 240. 30 years of knowing exactly how to fill a space. Don't, Hawk said. Dennis froze. You're going to back up, Hawk continued. You're going to sit in that chair, and you're going to wait. For what? For the people who are going to make sure this boy never goes back to that basement. Dennis's jaw worked. His eyes darted toward the door, calculating his options. The diner door opened again. 3 men walked in. Leather vests, Hell's Angels patches. The first one, bald, massive, with a beard down to his chest, looked like he could pick up a truck. The second had medic insignia on his vest and kind eyes that didn't match his build. The third moved like a man who'd been in fights and won them all. Stone. Mercy. Doc. They took in the scene in about 2 seconds. Then they spread out casual, blocking the exit without making it obvious. Hawk Stone said, "This the situation?" Hawk nodded toward Ethan. "This is Ethan. His stepfather keeps him locked in a basement and hasn't taken him to a doctor in over a year. The kid has recordings." Stone's expression didn't change. He looked at Dennis the way a wolf looks at something that just wandered into the wrong territory. That so Dennis's charm had completely evaporated. He looked around at the bikers, at the customers, at Dolores with her hand on the phone. "This is insane," he said. "I'm calling the police." "Good idea," Hawk said. "Mercy, you want to make that call?" Mercy already had his phone out, already dialing. Dennis's face contorted. "You can't do this. We're not doing anything," Hawk said. "We're just sitting here, having a conversation, waiting for authorities to sort out a child welfare concern. He's my stepson. He's a child," Stone cut in. "And he's scared of you. That's all we need to know." Dennis pointed at Ethan, jabbing his finger through the air. "You ungrateful little after everything I've done for you," Ethan spoke. His voice was small, shaking. But he spoke. "You took her money. Mom's money. And you hurt me. You said accidents happen all the time. I heard you. I recorded you. I have proof." Dennis's face went purple. "You little—" He lunged. Hawk caught him by the collar and slammed him down into the chair so hard the wood groaned. "I told you to sit," Hawk said. Dennis struggled for about half a second. Then he saw Stone and Doc moving closer, and the fight went out of him. "You're all going to regret this," Dennis hissed. Hawk leaned down until his face was level with Dennis's. "No," he said quietly. "You are." Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Ethan was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. But he was still sitting up, still holding the USB drive, still there. Dolores brought him another chocolate shake without being asked. She set it down gently and put her hand on his shoulder for just a moment. "You're a brave kid," she said. Ethan looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "I don't feel brave." "That's how you know it's real," she said. The door opened. Blue uniforms. Deputies. A woman came in first, 40s sharp eyes hand near her belt, but not on it. Her name tag said Chen. Behind her, a younger deputy with a body camera already recording. Deputy Chen took in the scene, bikers crying, kid red-faced man in a chair, and a diner full of witnesses. "Someone want to tell me what's going on?" Hawk stepped back, hands visible, voice respectful. "Ma'am, my name is Gunnar Reeves. I'm a member of the Reno Hell's Angels chapter, and I'm also a registered volunteer with Bikers Against Child Abuse. This boy came to me about 40 minutes ago asking for help. He's got a leg brace that hasn't been adjusted in 3 years. He's got bruises on his neck. And he's got audio recordings of his stepfather discussing harm to him and the misuse of his inheritance." Deputy Chen's eyes moved to Ethan. "Is that true, son?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Her eyes moved to Dennis. "And you are—" "His stepfather," Dennis managed. "This is all a misunderstanding. The boy has emotional issues. He lies. Deputy Chen held up her hand. Sir, I'm going to ask you to remain seated and silent while I speak with the child. Can you do that? Dennis's mouth opened and closed. I asked you a question, Deputy Chen said. Can you do that? Yes. Good. She moved closer to Ethan, knelt down to his level, and spoke softly. Hey, I'm Deputy Chen. Margaret, if that's easier. Can you tell me your name, Ethan Cole? Ethan, is there somewhere on your body that hurts right now? Ethan nodded. My leg. And my neck. Can I see? Ethan pulled down his collar. Deputy Chen's expression stayed professional, but her jaw tightened. Her partner was already photographing. Ethan, she said, is there anything else you want to tell me? Ethan held up the USB drive. I recorded him, he said. Everything he said. About the money. About hurting me. About making it look like an accident. Deputy Chen took the drive carefully, like it was made of glass. You did this yourself. Ethan nodded. That was very smart, she said. And very brave. She stood and turned to her partner. Call CPS. I want a supervisor here within the hour. And get me a second unit. We're going to need to secure a residence. She turned back to Dennis. Mr. Mercer, you're being detained for questioning regarding suspected child abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Dennis's face went slack. You can't be serious. Do I look like I'm joking? But as the second deputy approached with handcuffs, Dennis turned toward Ethan one last time. You're going to regret this, he said. His voice was different now. Cold. Empty. All of you will. Hawk stepped between them, blocking Dennis's view of the boy. The only person with regrets, Hawk said, is going to be you. 20 minutes later, Dennis was in the back of a squad car. Ethan was wrapped in a blanket that Dolores had found somewhere, sitting in the corner booth with Mercy checking his vital signs. Stone sat across from him, big arms crossed, watching the door like nothing else was getting through. Doc was on the phone with CPS, giving details in a calm, professional voice. And Hawk sat beside Ethan, not touching him, not crowding him, just present. Ethan looked at him with exhausted, tear-stained eyes. What happens now? He asked. Now Hawk said you never go back to that basement. That's what happens. Ethan's lower lip trembled. How do you know? Because I'm going to make sure of it. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, so softly, Hawk almost missed it. Why did you let me sit? Hawk looked at him for a long second. Because you asked, he said. And because you deserved someone who actually listened. Outside, the lights of the squad car faded into the Nevada night. Inside, a boy who had learned to survive alone finally let himself lean against the arm of a stranger who felt for the first time in 16 months like safety. The diner was quiet now, but the story was just beginning. The CPS supervisor arrived 43 minutes after the call went out. Her name was Valerie Torres, and she walked into Miller's Road Diner like a woman who had seen too many broken children and still hadn't learned how to stop caring. She was in her 50s, gray, streaking through dark hair, pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. Her eyes went straight to Ethan, still wrapped in Dolores's blanket, still pressed against Hawk's side, like the man was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting. Valerie didn't rush. She pulled a chair from a nearby table and positioned it across from Ethan, close enough to talk, but far enough that he wouldn't feel trapped. Hi, Ethan, she said. Her voice was warm, but not fake. I'm Valerie. I work with kids who need help figuring out what comes next. Is it okay if I sit here? Ethan looked at Hawk. Hawk nodded. Ethan looked back at Valerie. Okay. She sat down slowly. I heard you've had a really hard night, and a really hard year and a half. I'm not here to make you tell your story again if you don't want to. Deputy Chen already filled me in on the basics. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly. But I do need to ask you some questions, Valerie continued. Not to catch you in anything, just to make sure we do right by you. Is that okay? Ethan nodded. First question, and this one's important, is there anywhere you feel safe tonight? Ethan's face crumpled. He shook his head. That's okay, Valerie said quickly. That's actually really normal for kids in your situation. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It means you've been through something wrong. She glanced at Hawk. Mr. Reeves right. Backup volunteer. Yes, ma'am. You planning on staying as long as he needs? Valerie studied him for a moment. Then she nodded something like approval in her eyes. Good. That's good. She turned back to Ethan. Okay. Second question. The USB drive you gave Deputy Chen, do you know exactly what's on it? Ethan's hands twisted in the blanket. I recorded him on my phone, when he didn't know I was listening. Then I transferred the files to the drive so he wouldn't find them. Smart, Valerie said. Really smart. Do you remember what he said in those recordings? Ethan's voice dropped to almost nothing. He talked about the money, my mom's insurance. He said it was supposed to be his, that she shouldn't have left it to a kid who couldn't even walk right. Hawk's jaw tightened. What else? Valerie asked gently. He talked to his girlfriend about me. Ethan's eyes were wet, but his voice stayed steady like he'd practiced being numb. He said I was a problem, a liability. He said accidents happen to kids all the time, especially kids with bad legs, kids who fall. The diner seemed to hold its breath. Valerie leaned forward slightly. Ethan, I need you to be really honest with me. Did Dennis ever say he was going to hurt you? Specifically. Ethan hesitated. Then, he said he wished I'd never been born. He said my mom should have taken me with her when she died. And one time he said it would be easy, that nobody would even question it, that people feel sorry for grieving stepfathers. Stone made a sound low in his throat. Valerie's expression didn't change, but her hand moved to her phone. Deputy Chen needs to hear this directly, and we need to expedite that residence check tonight. She stood and walked toward the counter, already dialing. Ethan looked up at Hawk. Did I say too much? Hawk's voice was rough. You said exactly what you needed to say. But what if they don't believe me? What if they think I made it up? Kid Hawk said. You've got recordings. You've got bruises. You've got a leg brace that's 3 years too small. The only person who's going to have trouble being believed tonight is him. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, my mom believed me. She always believed me. Tell me about her. Ethan's face changed. Softened. Got younger somehow. She was sick for a long time, he said. But she never stopped being my mom. Even when she couldn't get out of bed, she'd help me with homework. She'd tell me stories. She'd make sure I ate, even if she couldn't. Sounds like a good mom. The best. Ethan's voice cracked. She knew Dennis wasn't right. At the end, she tried to change things. The will, the insurance. She wanted to protect me, but she ran out of time. Hawk didn't say anything. He just put his hand on Ethan's shoulder and let it rest there. She wrote me a letter, Ethan continued, before she died. She said when things got bad, I needed to find someone I could trust. Not someone who looked safe. Someone who actually saw me. Why not someone who looked safe? Because Dennis looks safe. Ethan's voice went flat. Everyone thinks he's wonderful. The neighbors, the lawyers, even the doctors back when he still took me to them. They all looked at him and saw a good man. Nobody looked at me. Hawk squeezed his shoulder gently. "I looked at you," he said. "I know." Ethan wiped his eyes with the blanket. "That's why I picked your table." The door opened again. A woman walked in, late 20s, professional dress tablet in hand. Behind her, a man in a sheriff's deputy uniform Ethan didn't recognize. And behind him, two more people in plain clothes who moved like they had authority. Valerie intercepted them near the door. Voices low, heads bent together. The occasional glance toward Ethan. Then they all started walking toward the corner booth. Ethan shrank back. "It's okay," Hawk said. "These are the people who are going to help." The woman in professional dress reached them first. "Ethan, I'm Dr. Caroline Webb. I'm a child psychologist who works with the county. I'm not here to evaluate you or test you. I'm just here to make sure you feel okay talking to these folks." Ethan nodded slowly. The deputy stepped forward. "I'm Sergeant Marcus Williams. I'm going to be leading the investigation into your stepfather. What you told Deputy Chen and Ms. Torres, we're taking it very seriously." Ethan's voice was small. "Are you going to search his house?" "We're working on the warrant right now," Sergeant Williams said. "Based on what you've told us and the evidence you've provided, we have grounds for an emergency child welfare check. That means we can enter the residence tonight." Ethan's hands started shaking. "What's wrong?" Dr. Webb asked. "The basement," Ethan whispered. "He'll know you're coming. If he calls someone, if he has time to clean it up, he doesn't have his phone," Sergeant Williams said. "It was taken when he was detained, and he's being held for questioning. He can't call anyone." Ethan let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 16 months. "There's something else," he said. "In his desk. In the office upstairs. He keeps papers there. About the insurance. About me." "What kind of papers?" Ethan's voice went hollow. "He made me sign things. When I was younger. Right after Mom died. He said they were just formalities. But I saw one of them later. It said something about if something happened to me. Who would get the money?" The room went very still. Sergeant Williams and Valerie exchanged a look. "We'll make sure we check the desk," Sergeant Williams said. "Anything else you can think of?" "There's a toolbox," Ethan said. "In the garage. He keeps it locked. I don't know what's in it, but he got really mad once when I touched it. Hit me with the padlock." "He hit you with a padlock?" Dr. Webb asked. Ethan nodded. "On my back. I still have the scar." "Can we see it?" Valerie asked gently. For documentation, Ethan hesitated. Then he turned around and lifted his shirt. The scar was about 3 inches long, raised and white, the shape of a padlock's shackle perfectly preserved in his skin. Dolores made a sound behind the counter, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "That's enough," Dr. Webb said quietly. "You can put your shirt down, Ethan. You did great." Ethan turned back around. His face was blank again, the mask back in place. "Can I ask you something?" he said to Sergeant Williams. "Of course. Will I have to see him again, Dennis? Will I have to go to court and look at him?" Sergeant Williams crouched down to Ethan's level. "I'm going to be honest with you," he said. "There might be court proceedings down the line. You might have to give testimony. But I promise you, whatever happens, you won't be alone in that room. There will be people there who have your back. And there are ways to give testimony without being in the same room as him." Ethan absorbed this. "Okay. I have a question for you," Sergeant Williams said. "You said you picked this man's table because you trusted him." Why? Ethan looked at Hawk. "Because he looked dangerous," Ethan said. "And dangerous people don't pretend." Hawk's expression flickered. "What do you mean?" Dr. Webb asked. "Dennis pretends," Ethan explained. "All the time. He pretends to be nice. He pretends to care. He pretends so well that everyone believes him. But Hawk, Ethan gestured at the leather vest, the tattoos, the scars. He doesn't pretend. He looks exactly like what he is. And what he is isn't fake. That might be the smartest thing I've heard all year, Sergeant Williams said. Stone cleared his throat from across the diner. Kid's got a point. Valerie's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face changed. Warrants approved, she said. Team is heading to the residence now. Ethan went rigid. Is there a way I can know what they find? You'll know, Valerie said. Whatever we find, you'll know. The next hour felt like 3. Ethan tried to eat the rest of his fries, but his stomach wasn't cooperating. Dolores brought him a cup of hot chocolate and a slice of pie he didn't touch. Hawk stayed beside him. Stone and Mercy and Doc took shifts watching the door. At some point, 2 more Hell's Angels showed up, a woman named Rosa, with medic training, and a guy called Preacher, who didn't say a word, but whose presence somehow made the whole diner feel safer. Ethan dozed off twice, jerking awake each time, like he expected to find himself back in the basement. The 3rd time he woke up, Valerie was kneeling in front of him with a look on her face that made his heart stop. What he asked. What did they find? Valerie took his hands. Ethan, the team just finished at the house. And everything you told us was true. The basement room with the exterior lock, the bucket, the thin mattress, the lack of heating. All of it. Ethan nodded slowly. He'd known it was true. But hearing someone else confirm it made something in his chest crack open. There's more, Valerie said. Ethan's breath caught. They found the papers in his desk. The ones you mentioned. Valerie's voice stayed steady, but her grip on his hands tightened. Ethan, your stepfather had taken out an additional life insurance policy on you. A big one. $500,000. And he'd made himself the sole beneficiary. The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did. He was going to kill me, Ethan whispered. We don't know that for certain, Valerie said carefully. But the policy combined with those recordings, it paints a very concerning picture. Ethan started shaking. Full-body tremors that he couldn't control. Hawk pulled him close. You're safe, Hawk said into his hair. You're safe. He can't touch you. He's never going to touch you again. Ethan buried his face in Hawk's chest and finally let himself break. The sobs came from somewhere deep. 16 months of fear. 16 months of silence. 16 months of sleeping in a basement and wondering if tonight was the night his stepfather would decide he wasn't worth keeping alive. It all came out. And Hawk just held him. Didn't say it was okay. Didn't tell him to calm down. Just held him and let him shatter and made sure all the pieces stayed in one place. When the crying finally slowed, Ethan pulled back. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was wrecked. Don't apologize, Hawk said. Not for this. Not ever. Ethan wiped his face with his sleeve. What happens now? Now, Valerie said gently. We find you somewhere safe to sleep tonight. Where we have emergency foster families who specialize in situations like this. People who know how to help kids who've been through trauma. Ethan's face tightened. I don't want to go to a stranger's house. I know, but it's just temporary. Until we can figure out something more permanent. Ethan looked at Hawk. Can't I stay with him? It doesn't work that way, kid, Hawk said. I'm not certified as a foster parent. There's a whole process. Could you become certified? Ethan asked. Hawk was quiet for a moment. Then, yeah, I could. Really? It takes time, Hawk said. Background checks, training, home studies. But yeah, I could do it. Would you? The question hung in the air. Hawk looked at this kid. This broken, brilliant, brave kid who'd walked into a diner with a rusted leg brace and a USB drive full of evidence and asked a stranger for permission to sit down. Yeah, he said, I would. Ethan's face crumpled again, but this time it wasn't grief. It was hope. Valerie touched Ethan's arm. For tonight, we need to get you somewhere safe and get that leg looked at properly. There's a foster mother I know. Her name is Gloria Hernandez. She's taken in kids like you before. She's patient, she's kind, and she never locks her doors. Ethan flinched at the word. From the inside, Valerie clarified quickly. The locks work from the inside. So you have control. Ethan processed this. I get to lock my own door, you get to lock your own door. Can I have a window? Valerie smiled. Gloria's spare room has 2 windows, and she leaves the curtains open so you can see the stars. Something in Ethan's face unknotted. Just a little. Okay, he said. Hawk stood. I'll drive behind you. Ethan looked up at him. You promise, kid, I'm not going anywhere. The convoy left Miller's Road Diner at 11:47 p.m. Valerie's car in front with Ethan in the back seat. Hawk's motorcycle behind her. Stone and Mercy and Doc bringing up the rear in Stone's truck. Dolores watched them go from the diner window. She'd been working here for 19 years. She'd seen a lot of hard stories walk through those doors, but this was the first time she'd seen one walk out with a chance. She turned back to the counter and started cleaning up. The pie Ethan hadn't touched was still sitting there. She wrapped it in foil and put it in the fridge, just in case he came back. Gloria Hernandez was waiting on her porch when they pulled up. She was in her 60s, small and round, with gray hair in a long braid down her back. She'd been a foster mother for 23 years. She'd seen kids who wouldn't speak, kids who wouldn't eat, kids who flinched at shadows and slept with their shoes on in case they needed to run. She'd also seen kids heal. That was why she kept doing it. When Ethan got out of Valerie's car, Gloria didn't rush him. She stayed on the porch and let him come to her at his own pace. He limped up the walkway slowly, Hawk a steady presence at his back. Gloria smiled at him. You must be Ethan. Yes, ma'am. I'm Gloria. I've got a room ready for you. Clean sheets, 2 windows, and a nightlight if you want one. Are you hungry? No, ma'am. That's okay. Kitchen's always open if you change your mind. She turned and walked into the house, leaving the door open behind her. Ethan hesitated at the threshold. It's okay, Hawk said. Ethan stepped inside. The room Gloria had prepared was small but warm. A twin bed with a blue quilt, a dresser with nothing on it, 2 windows curtains open showing the night sky, and a lock on the inside of the door. Ethan stared at it. You can test it if you want, Gloria said from the doorway. Ethan walked over and turned the lock. It clicked solidly. He unlocked it, locked it again, unlocked it. Then he turned around, and there were tears on his face again. Thank you, he whispered. Gloria nodded. Get some sleep, honey. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. She left, closing the door behind her. Ethan stood there for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and looked out at the stars. For the first time in 16 months, no one was coming to lock him in. Ethan slept for 11 hours straight. No dreams, no nightmares. Just black, empty, healing sleep. When he opened his eyes, sunlight was streaming through both windows, and for 3 terrifying seconds he didn't know where he was. His body went rigid. His hands clawed at the sheets. His breath came fast and shallow. Then he saw the lock on the inside of the door, and he remembered. He lay there for a long moment, just breathing, just being in a room where no one could lock him in. A soft knock. Ethan Gloria's voice muffled through the door. "You awake, honey?" "Yes, ma'am. There's breakfast when you're ready. No rush." Footsteps retreating down the hall. Ethan sat up slowly. His leg ached worse than usual. All the stress and movement from last night had aggravated it. But it was a familiar pain, almost comforting in its constancy. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and looked at the brace. 3 years too small. Metal digging into skin that had grown around it. A cage he'd worn so long he'd forgotten what freedom felt like. Today, he thought. Today, something changes. He didn't know how right he was. Gloria's kitchen smelled like coffee and bacon and something sweet baking in the oven. Ethan limped in to find her at the stove, humming something he didn't recognize. She turned when she heard him. "Morning, sunshine. How'd you sleep? Good." Ethan hesitated in the doorway. "Really good." Gloria smiled. "Sit down. I made pancakes. You allergic to anything?" "No, ma'am. You can call me Gloria Honey." "Everyone does." She set a plate in front of him. 3 pancakes, bacon, scrambled eggs. More food than Dennis had given him in a week. Ethan stared at it. "You okay?" Gloria asked. Ethan's throat tightened. "I forgot what breakfast looked like." Gloria didn't say anything to that. She just sat down across from him with her own plate and started eating like it was the most normal thing in the world. Ethan picked up his fork. The first bite made him want to cry. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the front door. Ethan's whole body went stiff. "It's okay," Gloria said calmly. "That's probably Valerie. She called earlier to say she was coming by." She went to answer it, and Ethan heard voices in the hallway. Valerie's he recognized, but there was another one too. Deeper. Familiar. Hawk walked into the kitchen. Ethan's face transformed. "You came. Told you I would." Hawk pulled out a chair and sat down. "How you doing, kid? Better?" Ethan glanced at Gloria. "She makes good pancakes." "Best in Nevada," Gloria said. "Don't let anyone tell you different." Valerie entered behind, Hawk tablet in hand, expression serious. "Ethan," she said, "I need to talk to you about what happens today." Ethan's grip tightened on his fork. "Okay, first we need to get you to a doctor. A real examination. Your leg, your overall health, everything. We need documentation." Ethan nodded slowly. "Second, the DA's office wants to talk to you. Not an interrogation, just a conversation. They're building a case against Dennis, and your testimony is important. Do I have to see him? No. Absolutely not. He's being held without bail. Flight risk." Something in Ethan's chest loosened. Third, Valerie continued. "And this is the hard part, we found more at the house than we expected." Ethan's breath caught. "What do you mean?" She pulled up something on her tablet. "Do you recognize this?" She turned the screen toward him. It was a photograph of a document. Official looking. Legal language. And at the bottom a signature that made Ethan's stomach drop. That's my signature," he whispered. "Do you remember signing this?" Ethan shook his head. "He made me sign a lot of things after Mom died. He said they were formalities. Legal stuff. I didn't understand what they were." Valerie's jaw tightened. "Ethan, this document gives Dennis power of attorney over your medical decisions. It also authorizes him to access your trust fund for your care and maintenance with no oversight." Ethan stared at her. "I don't know what that means. It means he had legal cover to do whatever he wanted with your money and your health, and you signed it when you were 9 years old, right after your mother died." "I didn't know. We know you didn't. That's why it's not going to hold up. You were a minor. You were grieving. And he didn't have proper witnesses. Ethan looked at Hawk. Did he steal my mom's money? Hawk's voice was rough. That's what they're figuring out. Valerie nodded. The forensic accountants are going through his records now, but from what we've seen so far, yes, Ethan, a significant portion of your inheritance has been moved to accounts you don't have access to. Ethan's hands started shaking. How much, we're not sure yet, but possibly most of it. The room went quiet. Ethan stared at his half-eaten pancakes. His mother had worked her whole life to leave him something. She'd fought through cancer, fought through pain, fought to make sure he'd be okay when she was gone. And Dennis had stolen it. Can we get it back? Ethan asked. That's what the lawyers are working on, Valerie said. The good news is he didn't spend all of it. Some of it's still in accounts we can freeze. And the bad news? The bad news is this is going to take time. Months, maybe longer. Ethan absorbed this. Then he looked up at Valerie with something harder in his eyes. What about the recordings? Valerie smiled. That's actually why we're here. Sergeant Williams arrived 30 minutes later with a woman Ethan didn't recognize. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a laptop bag over her shoulder. Ethan, Sergeant Williams said, this is Detective Angela Torres. She's our digital forensics specialist. Ethan looked between them. Torres. Like Valerie. Angela grinned. My aunt. She's the one who got me into this field. Family business of helping kids. Angela sat down at Gloria's kitchen table and pulled out her laptop. Ethan? Those recordings you made, we've authenticated them. Voice analysis confirms it's Dennis Mercer speaking. The metadata shows they were recorded on your phone over a 4-month period. And the content, she paused. The content is damning. What did he say? Ethan asked. I mean, I know what he said. But what's the worst part? Angela looked at Sergeant Williams. He nodded. There's a recording from 6 weeks ago, Angela said. Dennis is talking to his girlfriend. He says, and I'm quoting, the kid's worth more dead than alive. $500,000 payout, no more medical bills, no more hassle. All I need is for him to have an accident. Stairs, bathtub. That brace makes him clumsy anyway. Nobody would even question it. The words hung in the air like poison. Ethan didn't move. He'd known. Somewhere deep in his gut, he'd known that Dennis wanted him gone. But hearing it laid out so plainly, so casually, like his life was just a math problem to solve. He wanted to kill me, Ethan said. His voice was flat. Not surprised. Just confirmed. That's what we're building the case on. Sergeant Williams said, attempted murder conspiracy, financial exploitation of a minor, child abuse, medical neglect. The list keeps growing. What about his girlfriend, Hawk? Asked. She was part of these conversations. We're looking for her, Sergeant Williams said. Her name is Veronica Shaw. She disappeared the night Dennis was arrested. We think she knew this was coming. She knew, Ethan said quietly. She was at the house sometimes. She saw the basement. She saw my leg. She never said anything. We'll find her, Angela said. People like that always slip up eventually. Ethan nodded. But there was something hollow in his expression now. Something that looked like the realization that more than one adult had looked at him and decided his life wasn't worth protecting. The hospital visit was harder. Ethan sat on an examination table in a paper gown, his bad leg dangling over the edge, while a doctor named Patricia Okonkwo looked at his x-rays with an expression that got grimmer by the second. Ethan, she said finally, your leg was broken about 2 years ago. Did you know that? Ethan nodded. I fell down the stairs. Did someone take you to get it treated? Dennis said it was just a sprain. He wrapped it himself. Dr. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. It wasn't a sprain. It was a fracture of your femur. And because it wasn't set properly, it healed wrong. That's why you have so much pain. That's why the brace doesn't help anymore. Can you fix it? She hesitated. We can help, but it's going to require surgery, possibly multiple surgeries, and physical therapy for months afterward. Ethan's jaw tightened. Will I still limp? Probably, but less, and with a lot less pain. Hawk stepped forward. How soon can you schedule the surgery? We need to do more imaging first, Dr. Okonkwo said. And there are nutrition concerns. Ethan's significantly underweight, which affects healing. But if everything looks okay, we could potentially operate within 2 weeks. Ethan looked at his leg. The leg that had been broken and ignored. The leg that had hurt every single day for 2 years. Do it, he said. The examination continued. Dr. Okonkwo documented everything: the bruises, the scars, the malnutrition, the signs of chronic stress. A forensic nurse took photographs for evidence. A social worker observed, taking notes. By the time it was over, Ethan felt like he'd been turned inside out. But he also felt something else. Believed. They drove back to Gloria's house in the late afternoon. Ethan was exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that comes from being seen for the first time in years. Hawk walked him to the door. You did good today, Hawk said. I know it wasn't easy. Ethan looked up at him. Why are you doing this? Doing what, all of it? Staying, helping. You don't even know me. Hawk was quiet for a moment. Then he said, When I was 12, I got put in a foster home with a man who did things I don't talk about. For 2 years, I tried to tell people. Teachers, caseworkers, cops. Nobody listened. They looked at me and saw a troubled kid from a bad family. They looked at him and saw a respectable community member. I learned real fast that monsters don't always look like monsters. What happened? Eventually, I ran. Lived on the streets for a while. Got into trouble. Got into the club. Hawk touched his vest. Found a family that actually gave a damn. Is that why you volunteer with Baka? Hawk nodded. Because when I was 12, I would have given anything for one adult to just believe me. Just one. And I promised myself if I ever got the chance to be that adult for some other kid. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Thank you, Ethan said. Don't thank me yet. We've got a long way to go. Gloria met them at the door. You have a visitor, she said to Ethan. Her expression was careful, controlled. Ethan's whole body went tight. Who? She says she's your aunt. Ethan froze. I don't have an aunt. Gloria's eyes met Hawk's over Ethan's head. That's what I thought you'd say. They found her sitting in Gloria's living room, mid-40s, blonde hair with dark roots, too much makeup and not enough sleep. She stood up when Ethan walked in, and her face crumpled into something that was supposed to look like emotion. Ethan. Oh my God, Ethan. She moved toward him with her arms outstretched. I came as soon as I heard. I'm so sorry. I had no idea what Dennis was doing. If I'd known, Ethan stepped back. Who are you? She stopped, blinked. Her arms dropped. I'm your Aunt Rebecca, your mother's sister. Don't you remember me? Ethan stared at her. My mom didn't have a sister. The woman's face flickered. Just for a second. Then the mask was back. We were estranged, she said smoothly. Your mother and I had a falling out years ago. But family is family, and when I heard what happened. How did you hear? Hawk interrupted. The woman looked at him like she'd just noticed he was there. It's all over the news. Child rescued from abusive home. I recognized the name. Hawk's eyes were flat. The name hasn't been released. The woman's smile faltered. I have contacts, family foe, friends. I put 2 and 2 together. "What's your full name?" Valerie asked. She'd appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, already typing. "Rebecca Shaw." The room went cold. Shaw Hawk repeated, "Like Veronica Shaw." The woman's face went white. Sergeant Williams stepped into the room from the hallway. He'd been listening the whole time. "Ma'am," he said, "I think you'd better come with us." "Now wait a minute." The woman backed up, hands raised. "This is a misunderstanding. I'm just here to help my nephew. Your nephew whose mother didn't have a sister." Sergeant Williams moved closer. "Whose stepfather's girlfriend shares your last name." The woman's eyes darted toward the door. "Don't," Hawk said quietly. She ran anyway. She made it about 3 steps before Stone appeared in her path. She tried to dodge left. Mercy was there. She spun around, and Sergeant Williams caught her arm. "Rebecca Shaw, or whoever you really are, you're being detained for questioning in relation to the exploitation of Ethan Cole. You have the right to remain silent. Let me go," she was screaming now, all pretense gone. "I didn't do anything. Veronica sent me. She said the kid had money. She said if I could get custody." Sergeant Williams didn't respond. He just nodded to his partner, and they walked her out. Ethan watched her go. His face was blank, shell-shocked. "That was a scam," he said quietly. "She was trying to scam me." Hawk put a hand on his shoulder. She didn't get close. "How many more are there going to be?" The question hung in the air. Nobody had a good answer. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed with both windows open, watching the stars, thinking about his mother, about the money she'd left him, about the people who wanted to take it, about the people who wanted him dead. There was a soft knock at his door. "Come in," he said. Gloria opened the door slowly. She was holding something. A photograph. "I found this in your jacket pocket when I was doing laundry," she said. "I didn't mean to snoop." She handed it to him. It was the photograph of his mother, the one he'd carried from the diner, the one that had fallen out of his pocket the night he met Hawk. His mother in a hospital bed holding him as a baby. The words on the back. "For Ethan, Mama loves you forever. Trust the right people." Ethan's throat tightened. "She's beautiful," Gloria said softly. She was. Ethan traced the edge of the photograph. "She tried to protect me. She changed the insurance. She changed the will. She did everything she could. Sounds like she loved you very much." "She did." Ethan's voice cracked. "I just wish she'd had more time." Gloria sat on the edge of the bed. "Can I tell you something?" "Okay, I've been a foster mother for 23 years. I've had 62 kids come through this house. Some stayed for a night, some stayed for years. And every single one of them had someone who loved them once. A parent, a grandparent, a sibling. Someone who wanted better for them." Ethan looked at her. "Your mother gave you something," Gloria continued. "More than money, more than documents. She gave you the sense that you deserved better. That's why you walked into that diner. That's why you asked for help. That's why you're here right now instead of still in that basement." Ethan's tears started falling. "I miss her. I know you do, honey." Gloria took his hand. "And it's okay to miss her. It's okay to be sad and angry and scared. You're allowed to feel all of that." She leaned forward and did something nobody had done in 16 months. She held him, not grabbing, not demanding, just holding him like he mattered. And Ethan let himself be held. 2 days later, the news broke. Valerie called with the update Veronica Shaw had been found trying to cross into Mexico. She'd been arrested, and she'd immediately started talking, trying to cut a deal. What she revealed changed everything. Dennis Mercer hadn't been working alone. He was part of a network a loose group of people who targeted vulnerable children with inheritances. They called it adoption arbitrage. Find a kid with money, gain custody or guardianship, drain the accounts, dispose of the evidence. Ethan wasn't the first. He was the 7th. The FBI got involved after that. More arrests, more names. A lawyer in Carson City who'd helped fake the documents. A social worker who'd looked the other way for a cut. A judge's assistant who'd expedited guardianship paperwork for cash. All of them connected. All of them because of what Ethan had done. Because an 11-year-old boy had been brave enough to record the truth. Sergeant Williams came to Gloria's house to tell Ethan personally. "Your recordings didn't just save your life," he said. "They might save a lot of other kids too." Ethan sat with that for a long moment. Then he asked, "What happens to me now?" "The same thing that was always going to happen," Sergeant Williams said. "We get you healthy. We get you safe. And we make sure Dennis Mercer never hurts anyone again." Ethan nodded slowly. Then he looked at Hawk, who was standing by the window. "Did you start the foster certification yet?" Hawk's face did something complicated. "Paperwork's filed," he said. "Background check cleared. Home studies next week. And then we wait. See if it gets approved." "Will it?" Hawk was quiet for a moment. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've got a history, not criminal, nothing that shows up on a check. But my life before the club, it wasn't pretty, and some people don't see past the vest." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's stupid." "Yeah," Hawk agreed. "It is. You're the only person who helped me." "I know. If they don't let you, it's because the system's broken." Hawk smiled just a little. "Kid, the system's been broken a long time. Doesn't mean it can't work sometimes. Just means you have to push." "Then we push," Ethan said. His voice was steady. Strong. The voice of someone who'd learned that waiting for help doesn't work. Sometimes you have to fight for it. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday. Ethan spent the night before at Gloria's house, unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling and counting the hours. At 4 a.m., he finally gave up and limped to the kitchen. Gloria was already there. 2 cups of tea on the table. "Figured you'd be up," she said. Ethan sat down across from her. "I'm scared. That's normal. What if something goes wrong?" "Then the doctors will fix it. That's their job." Ethan wrapped his hands around the warm cup. "What if I wake up and it still hurts? What if nothing changes?" Gloria reached across the table and took his hand. "Then we try again. And again. As many times as it takes. Why? Because you're worth it." Ethan's throat tightened. Nobody ever said that before. Gloria squeezed his hand. Then everybody before was wrong. Hawk arrived at 5:30 a.m. He'd been up all night, too. Ethan could see it in the shadows under his eyes, but he didn't say anything about it. "Ready?" Hawk asked. "No." "Good. Means you're paying attention." They drove to the hospital in silence. Ethan watched the sun come up through the window, painting the Nevada sky in shades of orange and pink, and wondered if this was what hope felt like. Or just terror, with better lighting. The pre-op room was cold and bright. Nurses moved around Ethan with quiet efficiency, checking vitals, inserting IVs, explaining procedures he only half understood. Dr. Okonkwo came in at 7:15. "How are we feeling?" she asked. "Terrified," Ethan said honestly. She smiled. "That's the right answer. Brave people aren't people who don't feel fear. They're people who feel it and do the thing anyway." "What exactly are you going to do?" "We're going to re-break the femur," she said. "Set it properly this time. Insert a metal rod to keep it straight while it heals. Then in about 6 months we'll evaluate whether you need a second procedure." Re-break it, Ethan repeated. You're going to break my leg on purpose. It's the only way to fix it. The bone healed wrong. We have to undo that before we can make it right. Ethan stared at the ceiling. That sounds like a metaphor for my whole life. Dr. Okonkwo laughed softly. Smart kid. The anesthesiologist came in, a gentleman named Dr. Patel, who explained exactly what would happen when Ethan went under. You'll count backward from 10, he said. Most people don't make it past 7, and then you'll wake up and the hard part will be over. Ethan looked at Hawk, who was standing by the door. You'll be here when I wake up? I'll be here. Promise, kid, Hawk said. I drove 4 hours at 3 a.m. to sit in a hospital waiting room. I'm not going anywhere. Ethan nodded slowly. Then he looked at Dr. Patel. Okay, I'm ready. He made it to 6. The surgery took 4 hours. Hawk sat in the waiting room the entire time. Stone came by around hour 2 with coffee and sandwiches that Hawk didn't touch. Gloria arrived at hour 3, knitting needles clicking steadily, not saying much. At hour 4, Dr. Okonkwo came through the double doors. Hawk was on his feet before she'd taken 2 steps. He's fine, she said quickly. Surgery went well. The bone is set. The rod is in place. He's in recovery now. Hawk's whole body sagged with relief. When can I see him? He'll be awake in about an hour. You can go back then. Gloria touched Hawk's arm. I'll stay here. You go. She didn't have to say it twice. Ethan woke up slowly. The world came back in pieces, beeping monitors, the smell of antiseptic, a dull throb in his leg that felt different from before. Not better yet, just different. Hey, kid. Hawk's voice, close. Ethan turned his head. Hawk was sitting in a chair beside the bed, still in the same clothes from this morning, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 4 hours. Did it work? Ethan asked. His voice came out scratchy. Doc says it went perfect. Perfect. Ethan almost laughed. I don't think anything about me has ever been perfect. First time for everything. Ethan tried to shift, and pain flared through his leg. He gasped. Easy, Hawk said. Don't move too much yet. It hurts. It's going to hurt for a while. But it's a different kind of hurt now, the kind that leads somewhere good. Ethan lay back against the pillows. How long was I out? About 5 hours total. You stayed the whole time. Hawk's expression didn't change. I told you I would. Ethan's eyes burned. I know, but people say things all the time. They don't always mean them. I meant it. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan asked, what happens now? Now you heal, Hawk said. Physical therapy starts in a few weeks. In the meantime, you rest. And the other stuff. The case. Dennis Hawk hesitated. What Ethan demanded. Tell me, there's a preliminary hearing next week. The DA's office has been building their case. They want you to testify. Ethan's heart rate spiked on the monitor. I have to see him, no. They can do it by video. You never have to be in the same room. But he'll see me, on a screen. He'll know I'm talking. Yeah, Hawk said. He will. Ethan stared at the ceiling. Good. Good, I want him to know. I want him to see my face when I tell everyone what he did. I want him to know that I won. Hawk's expression shifted. Something like pride. Something like sorrow. You sure you're only 11-12 next month? Ethan said. If that matters, it matters. Everything about you matters. The recovery was brutal. Not just the physical part, though, that was hard enough. The incision, the swelling, the exercises that made Ethan want to scream, the nights when the pain was so bad he couldn't sleep. But the other stuff was harder. The nightmares came back. Not every night, but often enough. Ethan would wake up gasping, certain he was back in the basement, certain the surgery had been a dream, and he'd never really escaped. Gloria learned to leave his door unlocked. Learned to knock softly and wait. Learned that sometimes the best thing she could do was just sit beside him in the dark and not say anything at all. Dr. Webb, the child psychologist from that first night, started seeing Ethan twice a week. She didn't push, didn't pry, just let him talk when he was ready and sat with him when he wasn't. One session, about 3 weeks after the surgery, Ethan finally asked the question that had been eating him. Why didn't anyone notice Dr. Webb looked at him? Notice what? Any of it. The brace, the bruises, the fact that I never went to school. How does a kid disappear for a year and a half, and nobody notices Dr. Webb was quiet for a moment? Then she said, "That's one of the hardest questions in my field. The truth is, people notice more than they act on. They see something wrong, but they tell themselves it's not their business. They assume someone else is handling it. They don't want to get involved." "But I was right there," Ethan said. "At the grocery store, at the gas station. Dennis took me places sometimes. People saw me." "And what did you look like Ethan thought about it? Quiet, scared, trying not to draw attention." "Exactly. You'd learned to be invisible. And people let you be invisible because it was easier than asking hard questions. That's not fair." "No, it's not." Ethan's hands clenched in his lap. "I hate them, all of them. Every adult who looked at me and looked away. That's a reasonable feeling. But I also hate myself," Ethan admitted quietly. "For not running sooner, for not fighting harder, for signing those papers, for believing him when he said it was my fault." Dr. Webb leaned forward. "Ethan, look at me." He did. "Nothing that happened was your fault. Not one single thing. You were a child. You did what you had to do to survive. And when you saw your chance, you took it. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you incredibly strong. Then why do I feel so broken? Because healing isn't a straight line. It's messy, it's slow, and it hurts. But that doesn't mean it isn't happening." The preliminary hearing was held on a Friday. Ethan sat in a conference room at the courthouse with Valerie Dr. Webb and a victim's advocate named Patricia, who specialized in helping kids through legal proceedings. On the screen in front of him, Dennis Mercer. Orange jumpsuit. Unshaven. Thinner than before, but the eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. Looking at Ethan like he was still trying to figure out how to use him. Ethan's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the table. The DA, a woman named Sandra Martinez with silver-streaked hair and a voice like a hammer, walked Ethan through his testimony. "When did the abuse begin?" "After my mom died. A few weeks after the funeral." "What form did it take?" "He stopped taking me to doctors, stopped letting me go to school, started locking me in the basement when he went out." "Did he ever hit you?" "Yes." "How often?" "Whenever I did something wrong. Or sometimes just because he was angry." "Can you describe the incident with the padlock?" Ethan told them. Every detail. The toolbox, the locked garage, his curiosity, the sound of Dennis's footsteps, the crack of metal against his back. On the screen, Dennis's lawyer objected. "Leading the witness. Judge overruled it." Sandra continued. "Ethan, can you tell us about the recordings? I started making them about 4 months before I ran. I used my phone. I'd hide it in my pocket or under my pillow when Dennis was on calls. What did you hear? Ethan recited it from memory. He'd listened to those recordings so many times they were burned into his brain. He said I was worth more dead than alive. He said he was going to make it look like an accident. He laughed about it, like it was funny." Dennis's lawyer objected again. "Hearsay. The recordings have been authenticated and entered into evidence," Sandra said flatly. "The witness is describing their content." "Overruled," Ethan kept going. He talked about the money. My mom's insurance. He said she should have left it to him. He said I was a burden. He said... Ethan's voice cracked. "Take your time," Sandra said. He said he wished I'd died instead of her. The courtroom was silent. On the screen, Dennis's expression hadn't changed, but Ethan saw something flicker behind his eyes. Fear. Good. The cross-examination was brutal. Dennis's lawyer, a slick guy in an expensive suit named Harrison Vance, came at Ethan with everything he had. "You admit you were a troubled child, isn't that right?" "I don't know what that means." "You had behavioral issues. You lied to teachers. You had trouble making friends." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I was 9 when my mom got sick. I was scared. Sometimes I acted out. So you have a history of fabricating stories for attention." "Objection," Sandra called out, badgering the witness. "Withdrawn. Mr. Cole, isn't it true that you resented your stepfather for disciplining you?" "He didn't discipline me. He hurt me." "Isn't it possible that you misinterpreted his actions? He locked me in a basement. A room," Vance corrected. "A furnished room with a bed and amenities." "There was a bucket," Ethan said flatly, "for when he didn't let me use the bathroom. The lock was on the outside. I couldn't leave." Vance shifted tactics. "These recordings you made, you admit you recorded private conversations without consent. That's illegal in Nevada." Sandra stood. "The recordings were made by a minor in fear for his life. They've been ruled admissible under the domestic violence exception." Vance pressed on. "Isn't it possible you edited these recordings? Took things out of context?" "No." "How can we be sure?" "Because I have 12 hours of recordings," Ethan said. His voice was steady now. "Stronger. And every single one of them shows the same thing. A man who wanted me dead so he could steal my mother's money. That's speculation." "It's not speculation. It's what he said. I recorded it. You can listen to it yourself." Vance's face reddened. No further questions. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Ethan's legs gave out. Valerie caught him before he hit the floor. "Easy. Easy. You did great." "I can't do that again." Ethan gasped. His whole body was shaking. "I can't." "You might not have to," Sandra said. She'd followed them out. That cross-examination was weak. "Vance knows it. If I had to guess, they're going to push for a plea deal. What does that mean?" "It means Dennis might plead guilty to avoid a full trial. And if he does, then you never have to testify again. And he goes to prison." Ethan looked at her. "For how long? If he pleads to the charges we're pursuing, 10 to 15 years minimum." Ethan absorbed this. His hands were still trembling, but something in his chest loosened. "Okay," he said. "Okay." The plea deal came through 3 weeks later. Dennis Mercer pleaded guilty to child abuse, financial exploitation of a minor, and conspiracy to commit murder. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, he accepted a sentence of 18 years with no possibility of parole for 12. Ethan found out from Valerie, who called him at Gloria's house on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. "It's over," she said. He pleaded. Ethan sat down on the edge of his bed. "Over. The criminal case is done. He'll be sentenced formally next month, but the outcome is locked in. You won, Ethan." Ethan didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, "What about the money?" "The civil case is separate, but the forensic accountants have recovered most of it. About $300,000 will be returned to your trust, and the rest gone. He spent it, but what's left will be protected. You'll have access when you turn 18. Ethan stared at the photograph of his mother on his nightstand. She was smiling in it, holding him as a baby. She would have been happy, he said quietly. I think so too. Is Hawk there? He's on his way. He wanted to tell you in person, but I couldn't wait. Ethan almost smiled. That sounds like you. Guilty. Valerie. Yeah. Thank you for everything. That's my job, kid. No, Ethan said. It's more than that, and we both know it. Valerie was quiet for a moment. Then, you're going to be okay, Ethan. I really believe that. She hung up before he could respond. Hawk arrived 20 minutes later. He walked into Gloria's living room and found Ethan sitting on the couch with the photograph in his hands. Gloria had made herself scarce. She had a gift for knowing when to disappear. I heard Hawk said, Yeah. How do you feel? Ethan considered the question. I thought I'd feel different, like relieved, or happy, or something. And I just feel tired. Hawk sat down beside him. That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for months, years probably. When the danger finally stops, your body doesn't know what to do with itself. Does it get better? Eventually. Takes time. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, Did your home study happen yet? Hawk nodded. Last week. And still waiting to hear. Ethan's stomach clenched. What if they say no? Then we figure out something else. But I want to stay with you. I know. What if wanting isn't enough? Hawk turned to look at him. His face was serious. Ethan, he said, I'm going to tell you something I don't tell many people. When I was your age, I wanted things too. I wanted a family. I wanted safety. I wanted someone to just see me. And for a long time, wanting wasn't enough. The system failed me. Adults failed me. I grew up angry and broken and convinced that nobody would ever choose me. What changed? I stopped waiting for someone to choose me. I chose myself. I decided that no matter what the world threw at me, I was going to build something better. And eventually I did. The Club Hawk nodded. And the volunteering, and the life I have now. It's not perfect, but it's mine. I built it. And if they don't approve this foster application, I'll build something else. Something that still includes you. How, I don't know yet. But I'll figure it out, because that's what you do when you care about someone. You figure it out. Ethan looked at him for a long moment. You really want to be my dad? The words came out before he could stop them. As soon as they left his mouth, his face flushed with embarrassment. I didn't mean. Hawk held up a hand. I know what you meant. And yeah, I do. Why? Because you walked into a diner on the worst night of your life, and instead of giving up, you looked for help. Because you recorded 12 hours of evidence that brought down a whole network of predators. Because you're smart and brave, and you deserve better than what you got. Hawk's voice roughened. And because when I look at you, I see the kid I used to be. The one nobody believed. The one who had to save himself because nobody else would. I couldn't help that kid. But maybe I can help you. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to be someone's son, he whispered. I haven't had a real parent in almost 2 years. That's okay. I don't know how to be someone's dad either. We'll figure it out together. What if I mess up, then you mess up, and we deal with it? What if you get tired of me? Kid Hawk said. I've known you for 2 months. You've been stabbed, shot at, interrogated, hospitalized, and dragged through court. And I'm still here. I don't think tired is in the cards. Ethan laughed. It came out wet and broken, but it was real. Okay, he said. Okay, what? Okay, let's figure it out together. The call came 3 days later. Hawk was at Gloria's house for dinner. He'd started coming by most evenings, helping Ethan with physical therapy exercises, eating whatever Gloria put in front of him when his phone rang. He looked at the number. His face went still. I need to take this. He stepped outside. Ethan watched through the window, heart pounding. Hawk's back was to him. His shoulders were tense. He was nodding, saying something Ethan couldn't hear. Then his shoulders dropped. Not sagged. Dropped. Like a weight had been lifted. He turned around. Their eyes met through the glass. Hawk smiled. It was approved. Ethan breathed. Gloria grabbed his arm. What? What's approved? The foster application. He got approved. The door opened. Hawk walked in. They're expediting the placement, he said, given the circumstances. They want to finalize within 30 days. Ethan couldn't breathe. I mean if you still want it. There's a room at my place with your name on it. Ethan tried to speak. Couldn't. So he did the only thing he could think of. He got up from the table, crossed the room, and hugged Hawk so hard it probably hurt. Hawk hugged him back. Gloria was crying. Neither of them noticed. 3 weeks later, Ethan stood in his new room. It was small, clean, a single bed with a blue quilt, a desk by the window, a bookshelf that Hawk had built himself still smelling faintly of sawdust. On the nightstand, his mother's photograph. On the wall, a new frame. Inside it, a certificate. Emergency foster placement. Ethan Cole to Gunnar Reeves. It wasn't adoption. Not yet. That would take longer, more paperwork, more hearings, more waiting. But it was a start. Hawk appeared in the doorway. How's it feel? Ethan looked around the room. Looked at the window that opened. Looked at the door that locked from the inside. It feels like home, he said. Good. Hawk's voice was rough. Because that's what it is. Ethan turned to face him. I have a question. Shoot. When this becomes official, like really official, what do I call you? Hawk was quiet for a moment. Then he said, whatever feels right. Ethan thought about it. What about just Dad? The word hung in the air between them. Hawk's eyes got wet. He didn't try to hide it. Yeah, he said. That works. 6 months changed everything. Ethan's leg healed stronger than anyone expected. The limp was still there. Dr. Okonkwo said it probably always would be, but it was lighter now. Less like a chain, and more like a reminder. Physical therapy 3 times a week had turned into twice a week, then once. His muscles remembered how to work. His body remembered how to move without bracing for pain. But the biggest changes weren't physical. Ethan started school in January. Real school, with other kids and teachers and homework that actually got graded. The first day was terrifying. He stood outside this building with Hawk beside him, watching other kids stream past, laughing and talking, and completely unaware of how lucky they were. I can't do this, Ethan said. Yeah, you can. What if they ask questions? Then you answer the ones you want and ignore the rest. What if they find out about Dennis? About the basement? Hawk crouched down to Ethan's level. Then they find out. And the ones who matter won't care. And the ones who care don't matter. That doesn't make sense. It will. Give it time. Ethan took a deep breath. Will you be here when I get out, 3 o'clock, right here? Promise. Hawk put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. Kid, I've made you a lot of promises. Have I broken any of them yet? Ethan thought about it. No. Then stop asking. He walked into school. It wasn't easy. Kids stared. Teachers were overly careful with him, like he might shatter if they spoke too loud. The guidance counselor pulled him aside twice in the first week to ask how he was adjusting. But slowly things got better. He met a boy named Marcus in his math class. Marcus had cerebral palsy and walked with forearm crutches. He didn't ask about Ethan's limp. He just slid his bag off the seat next to him and said, "This one's free if you want it." Ethan sat down. They became friends. Not dramatic, life-changing friends, just regular friends. The kind who shared homework answers and complained about cafeteria food and didn't need to explain themselves. It was the most normal thing that had happened to Ethan in 2 years. The adoption hearing was scheduled for March. Ethan found out on a Thursday. He came home from school, home he still couldn't believe he got to use that word, and found Hawk sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers and an expression Ethan couldn't read. What Ethan asked immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Hawk pushed the papers toward him. "These came today." Ethan picked them up. Legal documents, words he didn't fully understand. But at the top of the first page, in bold type, "Petition for adoption, Gunnar Reeves petitioner. Ethan Cole, minor child." "This is real," Ethan whispered. "It's real." When March 15th, courthouse, 9 a.m. Ethan sat down heavily. "That's 2 weeks away." "Yeah. What if something goes wrong?" Hawk leaned back in his chair. "Like what I don't know. What if they change their mind? What if someone objects? What if Ethan?" Hawk's voice was firm. "We've been through background checks, home studies, interviews, and 6 months of foster placement. Everyone who needed to sign off has signed off. The only thing left is the hearing itself." "But no buts. This is happening." "Unless you've changed your mind." Ethan's head snapped up. "No. Then stop borrowing trouble. We've got enough real problems without inventing new ones." Ethan looked at the papers again. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. "I'm going to be your son," he said. "Legally speaking." "Yeah. What about not legally speaking?" Hawk's expression softened. "Kid, you've been my son since the night you asked to sit at my table. The paperwork's just the world catching up." The 2 weeks before the hearing were the longest of Ethan's life. He couldn't focus in school, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat without his stomach turning. Dr. Webb noticed. She called him in for an extra session. "Talk to me," she said. "I'm scared." "Of what, specifically? Of wanting this too much?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Every time I've wanted something, really wanted it, it gets taken away. My mom. My home. My safety. What if I want this and it disappears too?" Dr. Webb was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Can I tell you something about hope?" "Okay. Hope isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to believe in something despite the fear. You've spent the last 2 years learning to expect the worst because expecting the worst kept you alive. But you're not in survival mode anymore, Ethan. You're allowed to want things now. You're allowed to believe they might actually happen. What if I believe and I'm wrong? Then you hurt, and then you heal, and then you try again. That's what living is. That sounds exhausting." Dr. Webb smiled. "It is, but it's also worth it." The night before the hearing, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed in his room in his home, and stared at the ceiling until 2 a.m. Then he got up and walked to the kitchen. Hawk was already there. 2 cups of coffee on the table. "Figured you'd be up," Hawk said. Ethan sat down. "How did you know? Because I can't sleep either." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan asked, "Are you nervous? Terrified?" "Really, kid. I've been in bar fights, biker wars, and situations I can't talk about without a lawyer present. None of them scared me as much as tomorrow. Why? Because none of them mattered as much." Ethan wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "What if I'm not good at being a son? What if I don't know how? What if I'm not good at being a dad?" Hawk countered. "What if I mess this up?" "You won't. Neither will you." Ethan looked at him. You really believe that? I really believe that. They finished their coffee as the sun came up. The courthouse was crowded. Ethan hadn't expected that. He'd imagined something small, private, just him and Hawk and a judge. Instead, the hallway outside the courtroom was full of people. Gloria was there, of course. She'd driven up from Reno that morning with a casserole and tears already in her eyes. Valerie was there. Dr. Webb, Sergeant Williams, even Deputy Chen, who'd been first on scene that night at the diner. Stone and Mercy and Doc were there, cleaned up in a way Ethan had never seen. Leather vests over button-down shirts, beards trimmed, boots polished. And Dolores, the waitress from Miller's Road Diner. She'd closed the diner for the morning just to be here. "What is this?" Ethan asked, staring at the crowd. Hawk put a hand on his shoulder. "This is your village." "My what?" "The people who showed up. The ones who believed you. The ones who fought for you when you couldn't fight for yourself." Hawk's voice was rough. "You thought you were alone, kid. You never were." Ethan's eyes burned. The courtroom doors opened. Judge Patricia Moreno presided over the hearing. She was in her 60s with silver hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked through the paperwork, reviewed the case history, asked the required questions. Then she looked at Ethan. "Young man," she said, "I've read everything about your case. I know what you've been through. And I want you to know that what happened to you should never happen to any child." Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. "I also want you to know," Judge Moreno continued, "that in my 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen a child with as much courage as you've shown. You didn't just survive. You fought back. You gathered evidence. You asked for help when asking felt impossible. And because of you, other children are safer today." Ethan's hands clenched in his lap. Mr. Reeves, Judge Moreno turned to Hawk. "You've completed all requirements for adoption. Your background check is clear. Your home study is exemplary. Every professional who has worked with this case has recommended approval. Is there anything you'd like to say before I render my decision?" Hawk stood up slowly. "Your Honor," he said, "I'm not good at speeches. Never have been. So, I'll just say this: 2 years ago, a kid walked into a diner with a broken leg and a broken life, and he asked me if he could sit down. That's all he asked for. Just a seat at the table. And I realized something that night. I realized that every kid deserves someone who says yes. Not because they earned it. Not because they proved they were worth it. Just because they asked. Just because they needed it." His voice roughened. Ethan didn't need to prove anything to me. He just needed someone to see him. And I did. And I'm going to keep seeing him for as long as I live. So whatever happens today, I want him to know that. He's already my son. Has been since that first night. The paperwork's just the world finally agreeing with me." He sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Moreno removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. "Well," she said, "I don't think I've ever heard a better closing argument." She picked up her gavel. "It is the judgment of this court that the petition for adoption is hereby granted. From this moment forward, Ethan Cole shall be known legally as Ethan Cole Reeves. Congratulations." The gavel came down. The courtroom erupted. Gloria was crying. Valerie was crying. Even Stone was blinking suspiciously fast. But Ethan didn't notice any of them. He just looked at Hawk. "Dad," he said. Hawk's face cracked into the biggest smile Ethan had ever seen. "Yeah, kid, that's me." They held the celebration at the clubhouse. Not the kind of party Ethan had imagined bikers having. No wild music, no chaos. Just burgers on the grill, lemonade in coolers, and a cake that Gloria had somehow arranged without anyone knowing. The cake said, "Welcome home, Ethan." He stared at it for a long time. "You okay?" Marcus asked. He'd come to the party with his mom, who was currently deep in conversation with Gloria about foster care reforms. "Yeah," Ethan said. "Just processing." "Processing what?" "A year ago I was living in a basement. Now I have a dad, and a family, and a cake. That's a lot. It really is." Marcus bumped his shoulder. "For what it's worth, I think you deserve it." Ethan looked at him. "You don't even know everything that happened. Don't need to. I know you. And you're a good person. Good people deserve good things." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. So he just said, "Thanks. Anytime." Later that evening, after most of the guests had left and the sun was setting over the Nevada desert, Hawk found Ethan sitting alone on the clubhouse steps. He sat down beside him. "Hell of a day," Hawk said. "Yeah. How you feeling?" Ethan thought about it. Grateful, scared, happy, sad, all at the same time. That tracks. Is it always going to feel this complicated? Probably. But complicated isn't bad. Complicated just means you're paying attention. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan said, "I keep thinking about my mom. Tell me." "She would have liked you." Ethan's voice was soft. "She would have been so relieved that I found someone like you. She worried, you know, at the end. She knew Dennis wasn't right. She tried to protect me. She just ran out of time. Sounds like she loved you a lot." "She did. More than anything." Hawk nodded slowly. "Then I'm going to do my best to honor that. To be the kind of parent she would have wanted for you. You already are." They watched the sunset together, father and son. 1 year later, Ethan walked into Miller's Road Diner. He was 13 now. Taller, stronger. The limp was barely noticeable unless you knew to look for it. Hawk was with him. They took their usual booth, the same corner table where everything had started. Dolores brought them coffee and a chocolate shake without being asked. "Look at you two," she said, shaking her head. "Every time you come in, I still can't believe it. Believe what Ethan asked, that it worked out." She wiped her hands on her apron. "I've been working here 30 years. I've seen a lot of sad stories walk through those doors. Yours is one of the only ones that got a happy ending." "It wasn't luck," Ethan said. "It was you, all of you, everyone who helped." Dolores's eyes got misty. "You helped yourself, honey. We just opened the door." She headed back to the counter. Ethan took a sip of his shake. It tasted exactly like it had that first night. Sweet and cold and impossibly hopeful. The door opened. A girl walked in. She was maybe 8 years old, small for her age, brown hair that hadn't been brushed in days, clothes that didn't fit right, and eyes that moved around the room like a hunted animal counting exits, measuring threats. Ethan's whole body went still. "Dad," he said quietly. Hawk looked up, saw the girl, understood immediately. The girl was moving through the diner now, approaching tables, saying something Ethan couldn't hear. At the first table, a couple shook their heads and looked away. At the second, a man in a business suit didn't even acknowledge her. At the third table, a woman physically turned her chair so her back was to the girl. Ethan stood up. Hawk's hand closed around his wrist. "Ethan, I know what I'm doing." Hawk studied his face. Then he let go. "Go." Ethan walked across the diner. The girl was standing frozen, now rejected 3 times, trying to decide whether to keep going or give up. Ethan stopped in front of her. "Hey," he said softly. She looked up at him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, scared, desperate. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked. She shook her head. "What's your name, Maya?" "Maya. I'm Ethan. Are you hungry?" She nodded slowly. "Do you want to sit with us? We have an extra chair." Her gaze drifted to Hawk, still sitting in the corner booth. To the leather vest. The tattoos. The scars. She took a step back. He looks scary. I know, Ethan said. I thought so too, but he's not. He's the safest person I've ever met. Maya hesitated. Can I tell you something Ethan said? Okay. A year and a half ago, I walked into this exact diner. I had a broken leg and bruises I was trying to hide and a stepfather who wanted me dead. And I was so scared I could barely breathe. But I asked that man if I could sit with him, and he said yes. And that one word changed my whole life. Maya's lower lip trembled. Sometimes Ethan continued, the people who look the scariest are actually the ones who'll help you the most. Because they're not pretending. They don't have to prove anything to anyone. They just do what's right because it's right. Maya looked at Hawk again. Hawk raised his hand. Small wave. Nothing threatening. Okay, Maya whispered. Ethan held out his hand. She took it. They walked back to the corner booth together. Dolores was already approaching with a menu and a look on her face that said she understood exactly what was happening. What would you like, sweetheart? She asked Maya. Maya stared at the menu like it was written in a foreign language. Grilled cheese, Ethan said quietly. Fries. And a chocolate shake. Fast, please. Dolores nodded and disappeared. Maya sat in the booth, small and scared, hands folded in her lap. Hawk didn't push, didn't ask questions, just sat there solid and present the same way he'd been for Ethan. Maya's eyes kept darting to the window, to the door, to the clock on the wall. Ethan recognized every single sign. Maya, he said gently, is someone coming for you? She nodded. Who? My uncle. She whispered it like a confession. He's supposed to pick me up from the library. But I ran. Why did you run? Her hands twisted in her lap. Because he hurts me. And nobody believes me. And I didn't know what else to do. The words hung in the air. Hawk pulled out his phone, opened his contacts, found the number he needed. He looked at Maya. Would you like us to call someone who can help? Maya's eyes filled with tears. Will they believe me? Hawk's voice was quiet, but absolute. Yeah, they will. Because I believe you. And Ethan believes you. And that's enough to start. Maya looked at Ethan. Ethan nodded. It works. I promise. It won't be easy, and it won't be fast, but it works. Maya's whole body seemed to collapse with relief. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Hawk made the call. 2 hours later, Maya was in protective custody. Her uncle was being investigated. A caseworker was assigned. The system was moving slowly, imperfectly, but moving. Ethan sat in the diner parking lot, watching the CPS car drive away. You okay? Hawk asked. Ethan nodded. I was her. I know. And you were you. And it mattered. Hawk put his arm around Ethan's shoulders. It always matters. Every single time. What happens to her now? Same thing that happened to you. People fight for her. System works the way it's supposed to. She gets a chance. What if the system fails her? Then we fight harder. That's what this family does. Ethan looked at him. This family, Hawk gestured toward the diner. Dolores had already called Stone. Stone had called the rest of the club. Within an hour, there would be a network of bikers tracking Maya's case, making sure she didn't fall through the cracks. This family, Hawk repeated. Ethan leaned into his father's side. They stood there until the last of the daylight faded. A boy who had been saved. And the man who had taught him that saving others was how you made the saving mean something. 3 months later, Ethan stood in front of his class. It was career day. Students were supposed to talk about what they wanted to be when they grew up. Ethan had thought about it for weeks. When it was his turn, he walked to the front of the room. When I was 9, he said, my mom died. And after that, things got really bad. I ended up in a situation where I was being hurt, and nobody seemed to notice. Or if they noticed, they didn't do anything. I spent a year and a half thinking I was invisible, thinking nobody would ever help me. The room was silent. But then I met someone who changed everything, a stranger who let me sit at his table when everyone else said no. And because of him, I'm here today. I have a home, I have a dad, I have a future. He paused. So when people ask me what I want to be when I grow up, I tell them this: I want to be the table that says yes. His teacher looked confused. The table? Ethan nodded. When someone's lost or scared or hurting and they come looking for help, I want to be the person who doesn't look away. I want to be the person who says, sit down, you're okay here. Because sometimes that's all it takes. Just one person, just one yes. He looked at his classmates. You don't have to be a hero to save someone. You don't have to be big or strong or have all the answers. You just have to pay attention. You just have to see people. Really see them. He thought about Maya, about his mom, about Hawk. Because somewhere right now there's a kid just like I was. Scared. Alone. Looking for one adult who will believe them. Be that adult. Be the table that says yes. That night, Ethan sat at his desk with a pen and paper. He'd been thinking about this for months. And now finally, he was ready. Dear Mom, he wrote, I know you can't read this. I know you're gone and you're not coming back and there's no magic mailbox to heaven. But I need to tell you something anyway. I'm okay. I know that sounds simple. I know you worried about me at the end. I know you tried to protect me and you ran out of time and it wasn't your fault. None of it was your fault. Dennis is in prison. He's never getting out. And the money you left me, most of it's still there. It's going to pay for college someday. It's going to build the future you wanted for me. But here's the thing, Mom. Here's the part I really need you to know. You told me to trust the right people, not the people who look safe, the people who actually see me. I found one. His name is Hawk. Well, his name is Gunner, but everybody calls him Hawk. He's a biker. Big guy. Tattoos everywhere. Looks like the kind of person you'd cross the street to avoid. But he saw me, Mom. That first night when I was broken and scared and had nowhere else to go, he saw me. And he saved me. He's my dad now, legally and everything. We have a house and a room that's mine and a door that locks from the inside. I go to school. I have a friend named Marcus. I'm learning to play guitar badly. I'm happy, Mom. I didn't think I'd ever get to say that again. But I am. So wherever you are, if you're anywhere, I hope you know. I hope you can see this somehow. I hope you're proud. I love you. I'll always love you. And thank you for teaching me that I deserved better, for giving me the strength to ask for help when I needed it. You saved me too, Mom. You saved me first. Your son, Ethan Cole Reeves. He folded the letter carefully. He didn't know what to do with it. There was no grave to visit. His mother had been cremated, her ashes scattered somewhere Dennis had never told him. But that was okay. The letter wasn't for a place. It was for a feeling. He tucked it into the frame beside his mother's photograph. Then he turned off his light and went to sleep. And for the first time in almost 3 years, he dreamed of nothing but light. Because Ethan Cole Reeves had learned the truth that changes everything. You don't need 100 people to be brave. You just need one table that says yes. And if you're listening to this story right now, here's what I hope you take with you somewhere out there a child is counting the adults in the room, measuring who might help, who might believe them, who might give them one single chance. Be that person. You don't have to wear a leather vest or ride a motorcycle or know all the right words to say. You just have to see them. Really see them. And when they ask if they can sit with you when they're scared and limping and out of options and barely holding on, you don't hesitate. You don't look away. You don't calculate the social cost of kindness. You push out the chair and you say, "Sit. You're okay here." Because sometimes the smallest question changes everything. And the answer is always, always worth giving. Subscribe for more stories like this one. Comment where you're watching from TV or phone so I can see how far this story traveled. And share it with someone who needs to hear that they matter. Because they do. They always did.